I'm just gonna see what happens.
All
I
right.
may end up doing that though. Yes. So because I mean we're live, so we'll see. All right, we'll give it a shot. Terrible. Okay. And welcome back, SP Streamer Nation, to the next pick. On the clock now, myself, Drew Wheeler, at Drew is okay, and I'm joined by my co-host, the wonderful Mr. Peyton Skinner. How you doing, buddy?
I appreciate the intro, man. I'm doing good. It's been a pretty good day. Pretty, as we were talking about before going live here, kind of unexpected. Couple things came up with work and threw me for a loop of sorts, but kind of got everything squared away and pretty excited to jump on here. Kind of dive through this Highlander invitational that you've been kind of walking through. And, I think a lot of these guys, it's pretty cool. A bunch of them, are pretty well-known names and guys that I've interacted with, off and on throughout the years. So pretty cool seeing everyone kind of jumping in and doing a league together, getting to kind of analyze it a little bit.
Definitely. You said a mouthful, man. Knowing that, and I said this on the Fantrax Toolshed, but knowing and kind of coming to grips with the fact that this is a league of sharks and that they are ruthless in every sense of the word. They're coming for blood. It's really cool though, and it's nice, to know that the level of competition is at a certain place, and you've got to be on your game at all times. So that's really, it's been really fun for me. Before we jump in, I did notice something else, Peyton. That's better, and there's that. That's going to be a little bit closer to what you guys are used to seeing, and I'll cut this out of the regular version. Let me make sure that I've got and that's on there now correctly too, because this is kind of the person I am today, apparently. Anyway, so like you said, buddy, the Highlander Dynasty Invitational, that's the topic of the day. I am fortunate enough to be participating in the league. You, my friend, are unfortunate enough to be hearing me talk about participating in the league. And I've been messaging my buddy Peyton, the podcast partner supreme. And I've been asking this guy, what do you think of this? Am I insane? The answer is more often than not, yes, you are. But maybe it's a good kind of crazy. Maybe it's a good kind of crazy because Peyton and I, we've actually discussed a little bit that we have similar but differing views on prospects. And as you listened to our episode 2 weeks ago, our premiere edition, you gathered that. The fortunate thing is that I'm willing to learn and listen to Peyton's perspectives, and I feel already like a better evaluator of prospects in that regard. And so I feel like we're doing a good job. But we'll get to my team. We'll get to all the teams because, Peyton, I'll let you tell in just a minute what we're going to be doing about the Highlander Invitational. But before we get into that, buddy, what's up? How you been doing? And can you explain the lovely Brewers hat upon your head?
I figured you might ask. So, yeah, I mean, honestly, if you don't know me, I collect hats. So there's a good bit of hats that you'll be seeing me wear probably over the next couple episodes. I finally broke down and bought a Yankees hat. That was the last one I needed for my collection.
Love it.
But yeah, I have all of them now completely across the board. Of course, a couple teams have now updated their logos and everything, and I need to redo those hats. But yeah, I'm up to about 103 hats total. So yeah.
I love it. That's amazing. How do you display them? Do you have them on like on a special rack?
Yeah, well, right now we're actually kind of working on doing our house and everything, so don't have it set up yet, but I'm kind of in the midst of building I want to build kind of a setup in my office with a rack and everything eventually, maybe a little display set. At my old place where I actually had some shelving set up with them kind of displayed around the kind of top of the room that I put in, so that was pretty cool. But
That's
yeah.
really sick. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So some more news coming out, man, that I know that you're kind of involved in a little more than me, but still it's news that we're both very excited about, is the SP Streamer Discord. They have come up with this wonderful new thing in the burgeoning Dynasty and prospects community through our SP Streamer Elite membership Discord. Folks have started a Dynasty league, man. It's a 16-team league. They've worked out all the kinks. The draft, I believe, started tonight, if I'm not mistaken. It's a slow draft. And I think it kicks off tonight, if I'm not mistaken. But Peyton's going to be participating against some of our readers, some of our listeners, and I'm really excited to hear more about this league. Are you excited about jumping off the league?
Yeah, man, it's been pretty cool. We kind of threw it together super last minute, and there was kind of a little bit of talk of, you and me co-managing and seeing what that would look like. And I think, we decided I'll just run with it. And I'm sure similar kind of what's going on with the Highlander, I'm going to message you and you'll be in tune with everything going on. But yeah, we just got started, kicked it off tonight, and yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm really excited to just get to kind of build a relationship with some of those guys, get to like you said, it's fun when you're interacting with these guys in the Discord on a pretty regular basis. And there's some of the guys in our league that aren't in the Discord, so we've already been hyping that up, like, hey, what, you need to be in here if you aren't in here. Because it's great. I mean, I really love it. And I was telling some of the guys, even in the draft chat, just even as a writer, there's things that I enjoy just reading and seeing other people's opinions on players, seeing, kind of reading the room in a sense. And you get a mass view of, it seems like the general public's a little bit lower on this player than I am. So those are things that I can take into my drafts, and things like that. So that's been pretty cool. But it's a great community, and just, I think it'll be a lot of fun jumping into a league with some of those guys, and, another avenue for us to kind of put up on this platform of SP Streamer, and specifically the Dynasty side of things, which we're really trying to grow right now. So super excited for that.
Likewise. You said it, man. You said it. I'm glad everything's still going well with the house. Glad everything's, we're kicking off that draft. The Highlander's still, fresh in everyone's mind, and it's very much talked about right now. So we're excited for that. And moreover, why don't we talk about some Highlander? Peyton, tell us, pal, what exactly are we going to be talking? Thank you for your kind comment, by the way. We love it too. Tell me, buddy, about what we're going to do today, because we come up with the system that way we're not giving anybody's team, including myself, a ton of attention. We're not giving anybody super positive or super negative. We've really divided it up in a way that I think is fair, that the general populace can see the draft board from our perspectives and as a whole. I don't know about you, but I think it's really, really great what you came up with.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think kind of what you said, we don't really want to just spend a ton of time highlighting your team only, which I'm sure we will discuss in depth here, but also, talking about some of these other teams and some of these other, great fantasy analysts in the community and kind of what their strategy has been. So I think it'll be pretty cool. Kind of the idea that we're going to do is walk through kind of each team, Drew and I each are going to put together a pick on every roster that we really like, that we thought was, a really great value, or the position was about to go on a big run and they, saw that and took advantage of that. Or the other side where, it wasn't necessarily a bad pick. I want to emphasize that, but I more think that it was a surprising pick for us. And we're going to kind of discuss, why we thought, specific picks by, one pick from each team. Like, man, that kind of caught me off guard. I wasn't really expecting this player to go here, or, the way that they're building their team, it didn't seem like they were going to go for this type of guy. And then they did. So, sometimes stuff like that, it kind of keeps people guessing. So there's an element of fun to it, but I'm really excited to jump into that. And then, we'll have a little bit of time to highlight some of the teams that we really like the overall build of as well, and talk through a couple of those names that we, Drew and I both thought, man, that's a really good looking team and kind of complete roster from top to bottom so far.
Absolutely. You said it, man. I'm excited because, again, our differences in opinion, the way that we perceive things, I think we could have some interesting discussion, even based upon, wait, you like this? And that kind of thing. I do know, spoiler alert for later in the episode, the teams that we both chose are very similar. We had the same kind of basic short list of who we wanted to highlight. I thought that was very interesting, my man. I did. So
I did too.
anyway, the first pick of the draft was Mr. Jesse Roche. And so I got to tell you, man, I don't mean to jump ahead and be a selfish boy, but this is the team that I chose to highlight as well. So before I do that, would you like to tell us, Peyton, what's the pick you liked and why?
Yeah, I think that it wasn't really hard for me to take a pick that I liked. If you know me, and even if you read my most recent article on SP Streamer, you'll know that I am a massive Luis Patino fan. So I think that pick immediately jumped out to me, just looking at, where he went and kind of the group of young arms that Jesse had been putting together on his roster. I really loved seeing Patino coupled with some of those other pieces like Trevor Rogers, Michael Kopech, Ranger Suarez, some of those others. And I think it was just a late enough pick to where a lot of those, upside prospect arms had already been going. And if you think just a few years back, you had Dustin May, Jesus Luzardo, and Luis Patino was right in that group with the top pitching prospects in the game. And I think that people have kind of been disappointed in sorts with just the Rays being the Rays and the way that they've managed him. But there's still just so much upside there, in my opinion. And I think that, it may not be 2022 where he, fully breaks out as a starting pitcher phenom, but I think it's, soon on its way where he's going to be a difference maker in fantasy leagues. And I think either way, those ratios are going to be just really elite. So that's super exciting, especially the value there. I really loved it.
Definitely. I'm with you. I think that even if it's not a 2022 thing, the Rays have shown that, even with McClanahan, they just named McClanahan the opening day starter. And while their definition of starter may not meet the traditional definition, a 7 or 6 inning guy, Patino is going to get those shots this year. So, his talent I believe in. And something you'll hear me say repeatedly is that I believe in the intangibles. Everything I've ever read about Patino says that he's charismatic, a leader, a guy that players want to play with and want to rise to that level of enthusiasm and of energy. So, yes, I'm with you 100% on Patino. Curious, though, what's the surprising pick for Jesse for you? Because I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I thought that, overall, just kind of what you hinted at and I can understand why you really liked his build. I think the interesting pick, though, for me was actually Lane Thomas. I thought that was kind of a fascinating at that point in the draft, where you're kind of taking flyers on, more established veterans or, high upside prospects. I feel like that's kind of what we're going in that range of the draft. And, Lane Thomas, I feel like you could have gotten a very comparable player, if not exactly Lane Thomas, a few rounds later. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I'd love to, just ask him, does he see a potential breakout there? I know there's a team switch and things like that. So maybe he's expecting there to be more playing time or something of the sort. But that was a pretty interesting pick, in my opinion, there.
100%. I get it. And I think, not that I'm going to speak for Jesse by any means, but I do think that there is definite, there's belief that there is some upside to come for Thomas. You think they've added Nelson Cruz to the lineup, so that's just better pitches for him to see in some regards. I think that, obviously Soto, Josh Bell, Cesar Hernandez, that's a team that is kind of sneakily talented offensively. And Thomas has skill. And if he was to kind of continue this, I'll call it a pseudo breakout in Washington that he was showing, second half of last year, it wouldn't surprise me. And he certainly wouldn't be the first Cardinals prospect to prosper outside of St. Louis, away from the arch, outside of the looming shadow of the arch. So,
Certainly not.
no, certainly not. I mean, and it's believable. There's been so many of these lately, these prospects that have kind of emerged from relative obscurity away from St. Louis. And granted, that could be the case just because they have wonderful player development. What's up, Memphis Redbirds? Anyway, so Jesse's team, if I may, sir, I could go for days about Jesse's team and why I am a big believer. I think it stems on a couple of things. First of all, the average age of his players. Any idea? Any guess?
What, 26?
26.4 years old. The average age is 26.4. And it's not like he doesn't have older guys. He's got Yasmani Grandal, who's a 33-year-old, and that kind of drags the average down quite a bit, as a matter of fact. But I will say that in terms of that average age, I'm looking for my spreadsheet where I have this information. It is the fifth lowest average age of the league, and we can get into that a little later as well. But the key thing with Jesse is that he's getting value exceptionally well. Has the most value per pick according to a projection that I ran. And it's good value. Like right now, and I'm using some really rough, so nobody ask me what these numbers are for a 20-team league. Please don't. But right now, the numbers that I've got, Jesse has nearly 80% of the target numbers in everything thus far, and needs 2 offensive starters and 2 pitcher starters. And this is all with a team whose age is 26.4 on average. Players like German Marquez, Nick Pratto, Kevin Biggio, who I typically despise, Yasmani Grandal, these are all exceptional values where he's getting them. Marquez, for instance, I think I projected him at going like over 100 picks past where I thought it would have been reasonably acceptable to take him. And granted, this is a player that I considered taking, but you chase the upside in these dynasty things. But when do you draw the line? And I think that's a plus to my team is, I know when to draw that line. Clearly I didn't because Marquez is now playing for Jesse's team. Either way, I think up and down, this is a killer team. The only question mark I could draw is Ranger Suarez. And as a Phillies fan, I feel like it's a little okay for me to pick at the scab with him. Lots of ground balls, had some decent strikeout numbers, and I think the potential for strikeouts are fine. But I'm just curious, what is he actually beyond the first season, the small sample size of last year, and the fluctuating role from starter to bullpen, regardless of the fact that the numbers as a starter are better. I'm curious what the next step looks like for Ranger Suarez. But if that's the biggest qualm I have, then boy, is Jesse doing a great job, and it makes me feel real bad. So.
Yeah, I think just to tag off of, that comment really quickly, I had a similar thought about Suarez, but my thing is, Suarez was his 4th pitcher off the board. So
Right.
It's not like he was banking on Suarez being, his SP2 or SP3. It's like, hey, I'm going to kind of get these other guys, and then Suarez is going to come in and kind of, if he is an SP2, SP3, then that's just a plus. And, it's kind of interesting seeing the way he built the back end of his rotation, like you were just mentioning, with guys like, Marquez, Josiah Gray, who is still a prospect, but I don't think he's as much of a risk as the typical prospect coming in. So I think that those types of arms were pretty good balance to some of those younger upside arms that he was taking early.
Without a doubt. And I know that we're going way longer on Jesse than I'd intended to. What's up, Jesse? But I mean, when you consider that his SP1 is a guy like Trevor Rogers, who's not, set in stone by any means, Pablo Lopez, who I would say is a definite injury risk, Kopech, who is going to be embarking on his first adventures as a starter, it's not like they're beacons of security and stability in front of Suarez. But even still, you are absolutely right. I think that Suarez could be, an ERA of over 4, with 120 strikeouts and still contribute meaningfully to this team because of the staff that surrounds him. And We got to stop talking so good about Jesse. Let's move on. I feel bad.
Yeah, so I guess moving to the next team, we have Eddie Almaguer over at Prospects Live. I've had the chance to actually write with Prospects Live in the past, worked with Eddie pretty closely. He's a great guy. But yeah, what'd you think of his team here?
I liked Eddie's team. I'm gonna I'm gonna start with the negative though. I really expected a much younger team from Eddie. Looking at it, and I'm pulling up between 7 and 8 different spreadsheets here to give you guys this information. Eddie had on average the 19th youngest team. So that's the second oldest team on average in the league. And I really didn't expect that from Eddie because he's so bright with prospects. So perhaps because my dad only went to round 19, perhaps he's waiting and he's going to pull these deep selections out of the hat to shock us all. But my major shock looking at his team is the average age, and it's 30.4 years old. Ancient.
Wow.
Ancient. Younger than me, and I'm feeling good, but ancient. Yeah. What about you? What shocked you from Eddie's team?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I actually thought kind of similarly along the lines. I was looking through his roster and was like, man, he's kind of set up as a clear win now mode. And it's not until later on. And I think you hit it on the head that, Eddie's banking on his knowledge of prospects that, he's going to be able to scoop up some guys later in the draft. And, my favorite pick of his so far was actually one of his most recent, and that was DL Hall, who he got in the 18th round. And I was just like, how in the world is DL Hall lasting to the 18th round in a, circle with fantasy experts, supposedly, So I thought that was a beautiful pick. DL Hall DL Hall, in my opinion, has some of the best stuff in the entire minor leagues. I know that, the command, the injuries, those types of things still leave some question marks. But if you're going just based off of stuff, you could make an argument his stuff's better than G-Rod's, who everyone's number one prospect, for the most part. So I thought that was a wonderful pick there.
You said it, all of it. That's the same for me. I love DL Hall. I should have pulled that trigger much earlier, as a matter of fact. But it's so hard because I'm trying to build a win now as well, and so trying to pick and choose where to do things. But yes, Hall is phenomenal. I feel like all off season, when I'm not singing the praises of Seiya Suzuki, I've been talking about DL Hall and how much I love DL Hall. Hunter Green. It's one of these three. So
big stuff pitchers.
Yeah, these big stuff, man. We'll see what they do. But
that's right.
But yeah, I love DL Hall. That was a wonderful pick as well. So yeah, it sounds like we're kind of the same mind about Eddie's team. Eddie, holler at us, man. We like the team. Surprisingly old for you, but I expect that will change in the coming rounds. So third team to pick was none other than Alex Sanchez. As Chris Clegg said, Peyton, the man with the Braves logo. He should have known that he was going to snipe him on some Braves, and Chris was talking about that on the tool shed, and yet he sniped him on Max Fried in the 5th. And Alex, I'm going to go to his team. Why don't you tell us, buddy, what's your favorite pick that Alex has made thus far?
Yeah, Alex had a pretty interesting build. I thought that he was I kind of did a similar exercise to you, looking at, just kind of average ADP and where guys have been going, and seemed like he kind of had his guys, and he didn't really care what ADP said. He was just going to get his guys. And so that was pretty interesting. I think that it's cool seeing guys that are willing to do that, especially on a pretty big stage like this one. But I really loved his Austin Meadows pick. I think that Austin Meadows is a guy that over the past year or so has kind of slid in a lot of people's minds, but he's still so young. And I know he's not really going to be running or giving much stolen base upside at all, but he's on a really good roster. He's around a lot of really good hitters. And, especially if he's going to be DHing a lot now that Cruz is gone, maybe he'll be able to really focus on hitting and put together a pretty good overall counting stats. So I think that, getting him in the 8th round is pretty great value there for such a young player who, just a couple years ago, people were, saying was like a borderline top 50 dynasty asset, if you remember,
For sure. For sure. Yeah. Meadows is actually a guy that around the time that he went, I thought about Meadows for my next pick around. So it would have been my ninth round pick. So 9-18, which was a full round after Meadows ended up going. But, you live and learn. I should have known better than to expect he would last 30 whatever picks, 34 picks to me. But still, I'm with you there. That was actually my second favorite pick of his. My favorite, an Austin of a different feather, Austin Martin, who Peyton knows I'm very high on my prospect list. I think I'm probably one of the highest in the community if I had to guess. But I think that this is tremendous value for the 23-year-old who just hits. Hits. What's Austin Martin doing right now? I'm going to guess it's hitting. But at 323, nearly 100 picks of value. Again, this is a guy that I was looking at and really craving on my roster. I want to add these hitters, and several of my favorite targets in these leagues have already, they're long gone. Martin, another of that ilk. So my least favorite picks, I guess I'll choose Alex as a jumping off point on my kind of overarching not issue, but concern, is that much like industry leagues and leagues that we're seeing drafted everywhere this preseason, closers have been taken insanely high. And even closers that are higher in age or closers who are, not proven, I feel like it's a little excessive in a way. And I don't want to criticize anybody, and particularly Alex, who waited till the 13th round to take Camilo Doval. That's not my pick here. But still, just closers across the board, I think, are going just at a ridiculous rate, and I will reference that again and again. But like you said, at the risk of criticism, he's taking his guys, and one of these examples is probably Jazz Chisholm in the second round, 38th overall. That I draw the line at being a little suspect there. Now, granted, I like Jazz. I'm not a Jazz hater. I think he's electrifying, got all the skill in the world, but again, you can guess why my concernicus is acting up about Jazz, Peyton, and you'll probably hit it right on the head.
Hit tool.
There you go. Anyhow, just another quick fact about Alex, though. Average age of 24.3, very, very young, one of the younger teams. Pretty solid. I like it.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I picked Jazz as my surprising pick as well. So we're kind of synced up here for what, only 3 teams in, but seems like we're thinking similarly.
Yeah, we're very simpatico in this regard thus far. We'll see when we break on that. So the fourth team on the list is Jordan Rosenbloom. Jordan in Finland, man, he's out here or out there, I guess. He's somewhere. Jordan's someplace. And he's Jordan's team, yeah, he's over there. He's out here, over there. He's in places. So Jordan, tell me about Jordan. What's your favorite pick for Jordan?
Yeah, I actually really surprisingly was digging into Lindor, and I kind of didn't really become a big Lindor fan until I realized how low he was going once I started doing some of my drafts. And I've ended up with so many shares of Lindor this year. And I think kind of similarly here, I had a similar thought where, just this past year, there's no chance you would be getting Lindor in the 3rd round of a 20-team league. So just that value there for me. I know he's still a very good player, obviously a 3rd rounder. So it's hard to say like, oh man, that's incredible value. Right. But I really did like that pick. I think that was a really, really smart pick. And, kind of that if he wanted to grab one of that last kind of elite tier of shortstops, because he was at the beginning of the 3rd round, he really needed to jump out and get that guy. And I think he did that. So that was a pretty good pick there.
I'm with you. That's just kind of outside the realm of the picks that I would have identified as being severely positive value. But he's got a trio of guys that I am really into the value in terms of where he selected them. And those are in reverse order: Khalil Watson at 19, selected at 237. Chef's kiss. Tyler Glasnow at 157. Chef's kiss. And finally, a player that I know that you and I don't want to speak for you, Peyton. I'm sorry. I'm not souring on him, but I need to see it this year. The Martian, Jason Dominguez from outer space. My guy got him at 277, Peyton. This is unheard of value. Now, I mean, granted, we have last year to look at when he was going like probably in the first 10 rounds, probably the first 5 rounds of Dynasty drafts. But at 277 in round 14, the back half of round 14, lunacy. If at his peak he's Giancarlo Stanton, this is unreal. So I love it.
Yeah, I didn't know we were getting to make multiple picks, man. You didn't cue me in on that because I was going between Watson, Dominguez, and Lindor. So you kind of cut me off, didn't let me make those picks. So
High five.
There you go.
There you go. Simpatico still. And I apologize. I will trim myself down on the pick. I'm going to stop being so selfish and greedy. So my negative pick, I did want to address again, Aroldis Chapman in round 9. Closer's going so early. I hate it. And this is probably just jealousy. But the name that I'm going to point out is, I don't know. Andrew Haney concerns me. Chris Paddock concerns me. It's a lot of profiles that I don't know what their role is, and with the picks that he's taking them, it's just a little concerning. But there's nothing that really jumps out as aggressively shocking to me. So, what did you have for the shocker?
Yeah, I was actually kind of similar. I didn't see one specific pick that I was like, this is the one pick. But I actually just put a note of his entire rotation. I think there was just a lot of there's a lot of upside, but definitely a lot of risk. Like getting Glasnow in the 8th is great, but when your top 2 guys are Carlos Rodon and Justin Verlander, it's kind of like, oh shoot, you don't really have too much like floor there, So I think that I can see what he was going for. Even Chris Paddock later, and I think Bailey Obert's a pretty interesting pick. I do like that at the value there. Carlos Carrasco, you never know at this point in his career, but there's just a lot of like high upside and kind of big question mark of like, what am I going to get out of this staff type of thought. So that was, It wasn't necessarily one pick for me, but it was more, man, like he's shooting for the moon. And if he hits the moon, then he's going to have a really good team because his hitting's elite. So I can see what he's thinking, but that was just, kind of my raw first thoughts there.
I'm with you for sure there. So why don't you introduce the next team, man, and you can jump the discussion off on Mr. Drew Sperling.
Yeah, well, you said it. It's Drew Sperling. He kind of had that 5th pick there, went with Bo Bichette to kick things off. And, I really liked his build overall. I thought it was a pretty good team. My favorite pick, actually, kind of going back to that 3rd round again, was actually Alex Bregman. I think that Bregman is really coming off of kind of a bad 2 years in a row, or year and a half if you count 2020 as a half year, with injuries and people, he was cheating, that's why he was so good. And, there's just a lot of people saying that they aren't really sure what to think of him. But I think specifically because that position, in my opinion, is just so bad. In most of my leagues, if I have a chance to grab Bregman, he's kind of the very end of that 3rd base tier. It's actually pretty funny. Just in our startup league, I grabbed Bregman, and similar thought, whereas like, man, I absolutely don't want to miss here. And so I was pretty excited about that pick, but I think he did similar thought, a really great job of grabbing a really weak position at a pretty good value there, where Bregman could easily put together a really strong season and vault himself, up into that 2nd round value potentially. But I think he's easily a 3rd rounder when you take into positional value, Yeah.
Without a doubt. Positional scarcity, like you're saying, it plays so much. And Bregman, we're again on the same wavelength because Bregman kind of represents that last stud that I'm comfortable with, and I am a Bregman apologist and Astros apologist. Sorry. But, I mean, realistically speaking, this is a team filled with guys that I would consider to be extremely talented. Love the Bregman pick. Great call on your part. You actually spoke earlier to the guy I was going to speak on here with Dustin May, so I'll switch gears and say that in the second round, Spencer Torkelson, it blew my mind. And I was so again, you can't be mad whenever these guys on the opposite side of the draft take a guy that you hope falls, especially in this, again, a room of sharks. But I was so bummed. And, granted, it ended up, I knew I wanted to get a young hitter, and I ended up taking Adley where I was planning for Torkelson. So there's not really that – it's not a bad thing. It's more jealousy because I love Torque, and as we talked about on our debut episode, amazing hit tool. I love it. It is kind of we have a comment here. It's an early pick. It is an early pick for Torkelson. Looking again though at the what he could be and considering Dynasty, I think it was a great pick. I'm going to say it was a plus in my book, and I did a check when I said plus.
So I
what
guess
about your favorite?
Yeah, so kind of the other side of it. I thought that the kind of surprising pick for me was looking at just his I guess rotational depth. I think it was interesting where he took Dansby Swanson. I thought that was a kind of decent spot if he wanted to grab another starter, or even, I know you'll hate this, but even if grab a relief pitcher potentially. I know that's really early for you, but it depends on the build. I think that, kind of speaking to strategy a little bit without going down a huge rabbit hole, I think, if you're in a position where you're going to win now, and, we'll see one of these teams coming up here soon where they actually took 2 relievers by the time that Swanson was off the board. I think that, those guys are cashing in on saves, and they're really saying, hey, this is going to be something where I win this category and I don't want to have to worry about it. And it's really interesting in Dynasty, especially in Roto Dynasty, because you really only care about those saves, but relief pitchers are so volatile in Dynasty. So it's the up and down of, okay, how much do I really want to prioritize this? And honestly, if you're not in a win now mode, I really don't see any reason in taking relief pitching. You just kind of push it off and you worry about it, 2 or 3 years down the road whenever you're actually in your contention window.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's kind of just my general thoughts there. Did you have any kind of surprising picks with that team?
Do you want to guess? It's relievers, Corey Knebel and Taylor Rogers.
Yeah.
It's early. And now granted, maybe it's because I'm choosing, in this Libra scale of weighing out whether I want to have the knowledge that I've got saves on lock, or knowing that this is such a volatile position, I've chosen to stick with safety. And I've chosen that this is volatile, and I'd rather play a long-term game with closers, or like you said, trade for them if my team is as good of a winner as I'd like to think it is. And so, yeah. And again, I like Drew's team. Drew has a solid team, a solid plan, and a solid name. So what else can you say? Moving on, though, to Chris Clegg, friend of the podcast. Check out the Fantrax Toolshed. One of their more recent episodes I thought was pretty good. So have to check that out if you haven't.
Not biased at all there.
No, it's all just strictly objective. My favorite pick for this was a pick that came out of the playbook of this guy right here, Garrett Whitlock in the 15th round, because that's a guy that could be catching saves, and if he's not, he's going to be valuable regardless. And what is his future? Is he a starter that would by all likelihood succeed? Is he a closer that by all likelihood would succeed? I like it. The versatility of what the end goal is there for him. And in the 15th round at 286 overall, Love Whitlock. Great value there for Clegg. What'd you think was his best value?
Yeah, kind of similar to the DL Hall pick earlier. I went with Mackenzie Gore in that same round. I think that similar to everything I said, like it's just unbelievable how far these guys slipped. And I know Gore had a really bad year last year and people were just completely tanking him in their rankings. But this guy was the number one prospect for pitching. And just, I mean, there's so many people saying just can't miss. And I think that grabbing a guy like that in the 18th round, is just unbelievable. Like he went in the same round as Anthony DeSclafani, Cody Morris, Eric Lawler, like those pitchers, and you can grab Mackenzie Gore. Like I just think that that's a really great value there. So I love that pick by Chris there.
It is a great pick for sure. I'm looking at who I took in that round. I took Charlie Blackmon. So yeah, I mean, yeah. I will say anybody who is in the SP Streamer Elite Discord, you can get all the info on how to subscribe to that on the website spstreamer.com, by the way. But if you're not, you missed a wonderful write-up. Alicia Vergara did a great mini deep dive on Mackenzie Gore that I thought really hit a lot of the reasons that he's such an interesting player right now. And I mean, granted, he has a lot of helium because of his strong spring, Peyton. But you and I have talked multiple times this offseason about how the deeper story of what does a bad year, a bad outing, a bad inning do to a pitcher's value in Dynasty. And the fact that he's now almost overcome this and is being, lauded as, a contributor this year thus far based upon his spring, I think that that's just a really interesting story. And, the skills are there. Skills never disappear. They may erode, but they don't disappear. So, anyway.
100% agree.
Thank you, sir. So with Clegg, what did you dislike? What was the shocker? What was the surprise?
Yeah, it was kind of one of those where I didn't necessarily see anything I disliked to, be clear. I think kind of going back to the third base discussion again, I'm not a huge Moncada guy. I think that he kind of belongs in that next tier. And if you look at the way that third basemen were going, there's like the top end first third baseman, and then there's like multiple rounds, and then there's like the next tier. And Moncada kind of went in the middle section there. And, if he's big, I don't really know how Chris feels about Moncada, but if he's a big Moncada guy, then I can totally justify that pick. But for me, I kind of have him in that next tier with Ke'Bryan Hayes and those types of guys. So I think he could have potentially waited a couple rounds there and just grabbed one of those other players if he wanted to do so.
I hear you. I think you're right. Moncada worries me for reasons that should be fairly apparent. So anyway, my big question mark for Chris was also kind of not really a criticism as much as just I don't have a complaint. Chris established on the tool shed that he was building a win now team, and it's very apparent. Average age of 27.8. I like closers again. They're pushed. I think the value may be wrong for me, but clearly, with Jordan Romano, who's 29, not old and talented. Andrew Kittredge, who plays for a wonderful team that's, admittedly jammed up in the reliever range, and Whitlock. I think these are guys that could all get saves and are not ancient by any stretch of the imagination. It's just, I laud that. But again, I have to question where they're going and compared to overall talent. Again, though, that could prove to be the dog biting me in the butt at the end of the day. So it's all good. It's all good. So I did notice, Peyton, that we are running a little long. So as of right now, let's give it a quick break. We're going to stop for an ad. You guys listen tight to the ad. And then when we come back from the break, we're going to try to rapid fire through the last couple teams. Peyton's got his favorite team that we're going to hear all about in detail. Can't wait to hear this because you guys are going to love it as well. When we get back from this quick break, we're going to pause the clock on the next pick. This is where the ad break's going to go on the On the recorded version, my friends, everybody watching at home, this is a little peek behind the scenes. So, anyway, we'll take all this out, and the ad break will be finishing right about now. All right. Well, that was some information that we really needed, buddy. I thought that was a great ad. I'm interested in supplying, filling myself up with their content, their products. I appreciate them sponsoring us. And so, the next team I want to hear about, Peyton, I want to hear about your favorite team. Tell me about the team that you look at and you said, this is one I want to highlight. And I know we're jumping out of order of the draft order, but let's jump to your favorite team and let's hear about them and why you like them the best.
Yeah, so it was pretty hard to pick one team. Similar to what, Drew, we were texting about earlier. I think we both kind of highlighted both of these two teams. You actually had Jesse's team as your number one, but your number 2 and 3 were my 1 and 2. So I really liked both Brett's team and Eric's team. I think that they both did a really great job of, piling up young talent, but also getting players that aren't, just way off base and just all upside. And, you could see that they were at least paying attention to positional value and things of that nature throughout their draft. So I thought that they both, when I was looking at their teams, I loved the way that they were kind of going about building their roster.
Definitely. So when you look at the main reason that your favorite pick of Brett's team, what jumps out the most at you, buddy? What's the pick that you gravitate towards the most?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of picks on here that I really like, to be honest with you. I think, Marco Luciano, I'm a huge believer in still. I mean, this time last year, this guy was honestly like right up there for coming. He was kind of, him and J-Rod were the guys that I thought were going to be pushing for number 1 right behind when, Kellenick and Witt and those guys, graduated. And so I'm still really in on this guy. I mean, you've heard me talk about him, Drew, and I love this guy still. So I think that that's a great value there, getting him where he did. CJ Abrams with the speed there in the 4th round, Jared Kellenick, like it's all these just prospects that are, kind of Andrew Vaughn, 5th round. Like I'm like, oh my goodness, so kind of going all the way down the board, but kind of one guy I wanted to highlight actually is way down the board, and that's Dylan Cruz. I think that was a really cool pick because it kind of plays into the open universe side of things that this league does, which not a lot of leagues do. So I wanted to bring it up just for that sake, because I think that's a really cool thing that, James and the guys that set this league up incorporated. So shout out to those guys, because that's really cool. But yeah, Dylan Cruz is a dude. I think, I'm a big college baseball fan. I watch a lot of college games still. And one of my best friends is actually an LSU guy. So I've watched a fair share of LSU games. And Dylan Cruz, I think, is going to be an absolute monster when he gets to the MLB draft. And he's still a sophomore in college at LSU. So it's kind of a unique pick where, you see Tamar Johnson and Drew Jones also go. And I think Eric also just took Elijah Green and Brooks Lee. There was a couple guys like that have just recently started going, but a lot of those guys are going to be in this draft class, and Cruz isn't even going to be MLB eligible this year. It's going to be the following year. So I thought that was just a really cool pick. And if you look at kind of going back to what you mentioned earlier with Khalil Watson, Marcelo Meyer, you look at some of those players and where they're going, there's no reason for me to think that Dylan Cruz is going to be anything lower than those guys. And I personally think he might be going even higher than those guys when it's his time to be in, first year player drafts. So securing him at the round that he went versus, the rounds that Meyer and Watson went, I think is a huge value. So I really love that pick there.
I hear you. I think that you hit the nail on the head for the reasons to appreciate Brett's team. I if you didn't see it earlier in the week, my tweet about Marco Luciano and how I think this is just a wonderful talent that I've questioned a little too much probably. My favorite though is actually ironically one of his oldest players. So I'm going to ask you, without looking or cheating in any certain way, do you know what his oldest aged player is and who it may be?
I don't know, but it might be the player that I had as my surprise pick.
Oh, tell me
So I'm
more.
not sure. I don't know how old his team was. I'm gonna go with was it Noah Syndergaard though?
Oldest player on his team at the ripe old age of
That's what I
29.6.
thought. Okay.
Average age 23.7 for Brett. It's insane. I
Yeah,
love it.
that's
I love it.
unbelievable.
I
Yeah,
love
so
it.
I mean, that's like I said, that was my kind of surprise pick. I think that, it was pretty interesting seeing him go with a guy that's coming off of Tommy John surgery. I love the Shane Bieber pick and the Ian Anderson pick. I thought that those were, right up his alley, fitting his build. But the Syndergaard pick almost seems like one where he just thought the value was too good to pass up and he could just trade him. Like if Syndergaard's
Sure.
looking great this year and playing really well for the Angels, Brett might be able to cash in and get even younger. So that was kind of my only thought there. But who knows? I mean, Syndergaard has, long been one of the highest upside pitchers in the game. So if he puts it all together in Los Angeles this year, that could be a huge value. So I think it's a little bit more risk for my taste, but I really enjoyed, the fact that that's his oldest player is pretty crazy.
Stunning. It's stunning. And, it cements his strategy. And it's a strategy that's working so far, at least from our perspective. Me and you like it. So way to go, Brett. So we're right about at nearly close to an hour. So why don't we put the accelerator on and we'll go real quick rapid fire through the rest of the board. And we're going to have to talk more about some of these teams in the future to kind of make it up to them. But let's start with DJ Short picking 7th. Give me your favorite pick and your surprise pick, my man.
Yeah, my favorite pick was AJ Pollock. I think that it was just a, pretty exciting pick at that point. I think the value can be good. Clearly, if you look at DJ's team, is a win now build, so I think Pollock really fits that well. My surprise pick was actually Mitch Garver, who again kind of fits the win now mold, but I thought similar to what I was talking about with Moncada earlier, I thought Garver was kind of wedged between two tiers of catching. And I didn't think that he necessarily needed to get Garver right there where he did. So that was my only thoughts there. What about
I
you?
like it. My favorite, I'm going to go with Hyunjin Ryu at 314. Thought that was like 60 to 70 picks after when I would have considered taking him. Love that pick. Love Hyunjin Ryu. Surprise pick, Noelvi Marte at 74. And I don't want to sit here and just dunk on Noelvi Marte over and over. I swear I don't. But considering that guys like, Chris Bryant, Max Fried, Nick Castellanos, Joe Musgrove, uh, Andrew Vaughn, Alex Kirilov, Nolan Arenado, all these guys are going after him, and I can trust them all much more than Marte. Now, granted, again, this is probably just me being the low guy on Noelvi Marte across the world. Just concernicus. I just have some concerns. So, anyway, let's move past that, though, before I get torch and pitchforked across Twitter this evening. Not in my plans for the night, if you didn't know. We'll move to Mr. Nick Ruse, the itch. And tell me about what your favorite and your shocker were from Nick's team.
Yeah, I really love just the way that Nick, it's kind of two favorite picks. I just really like the way he coupled Jose Miranda and Anthony Rendon together. I thought that was really beautifully well done. I think that I'm probably a little bit higher on Miranda than most people, probably not as high as you are, Drew, as I know kind of how you speak about that guy. But I think that he's in a position where he's pretty close to being able to help right now. And I think that Rendon, while there's a lot to like there is some risk. So it's pretty great seeing, kind of that 1-2 punch right behind itself of, okay, if for some reason Rendon doesn't have it figured out or he gets hurt or something, I have Miranda right there and waiting. So I thought I really enjoyed kind of how he did that.
Definitely. Looking at my favorite, and yes, you kind of hit the nail on the head with the favorite of mine. So I'm going to pivot here, and I'll give credit where credit is due because 3rd round and 6th round. So in the top 10 rounds, we have Josh Hader and Edwin Diaz. If you're going to go closers so early in this, take those. Those guys, 28 years old each, both, I mean, as established as you can get as closers. I have nothing wrong with that. And then my surprising pick is really more of a concern overall, as they've tended to be. And it's just within the first 10 rounds, not only did he take two closers, which I'll give credit for, I'm not going to sit here, but 4 injury risks. 40% of the first 10 rounds are injury risks between Clevenger, Robert, DeGrom, and Rendon. That's just a little risky for me personally, and I like all of these guys. But it's a lot of injury risk. Granted, with Dynasty, it's not as big of a risk as it would be for your garden variety redraft league, but still. Actually, also for what it's worth, drew a little thumbs up for Nick's team on my sheet for whatever reason. I must have liked something, so a thumbs up I drew. Okay. We talked about Brett's team. What about Mr. Ken Balderston? I like Ken. He's a very kind guy. In terms of my favorite, I'm going to go with Marcelo Meyer. He about 60 picks later than what I thought he would go. I really probably should have pulled that trigger much earlier. Big fan of that. And in terms of the play that I like the least, I think that this could be controversial. Mitch Keller worries me still. I think there's been a lot of growth, but I think that even still, there probably could have been a pitcher taken with more upside and more security than Keller. And I'm criticizing Ken's 18th round pick like such a jerk. Ken, I'm sorry. And I'm sorry to all the Mitch Keller stands out there. Peyton, what you got? What's your favorite and your shocker?
Yeah, I had a hard time finding something that was surprising in Ken's team, to be honest. I think that, I'm not generally as high on Luis Urias as others, so I guess it's not really surprising. Like, I can easily see why he went Urias there. It's more just maybe that wasn't my pick, but it's not necessarily surprising at all when I'm looking at the build. So I really, like I said, didn't have too much to say there. I think that looking at the way he built his team out, I really enjoyed the John Gray pick, actually. Seeing as he kind of went a little bit younger, a little bit riskier with his pitchers, I think John Gray's a guy that for whatever he may or may not have done in Colorado, he's going to be in a lot better ballpark, and he's going to at least give you innings at the least. And I think that there's a lot to be said for that when you're talking about a guy pitching in one of the most pitcher friendly parks, and you're getting him in the 16th round. So it's hard to complain about that.
Definitely. Absolute upside at that point, because it's a whole new opportunity for him. And I'm excited to see how he plays in that division and outside of course, frankly, for 50% of his games. So the next team is your buddy, James Anderson. So I'll let you take the lead on James's team and tell me what you like and what shocked you about James's team.
Yeah, I really like the way that James went about building his roster. I think similar to kind of a couple of these guys, he went super young and kind of just started midway through. He was like, all right, screw this. I'm just going to hammer prospects.
Yeah.
And so if you look at his roster, he just started, pick after pick after pick, just grabbing prospects. So I think that if, a lot of the times the way prospects go is a lot of them don't hit, and the ones that do, you have a great pick with. So that's potentially some of his thought process there. The pick that really stood out to me the most was the Tristan Casas pick. I really liked him going after Casas there with what was that? His sixth pick? Yeah, I think in the 6th round there. Again, going back to tiers, I know he's listed as a third baseman. I don't really think he's going to be a third baseman long term, but even when you're looking at first base, there's kind of that same drop off in Dynasty specifically. I think redraft, there's a lot of older first basemen that can fit the bill. But in Dynasty, Cassis really jumps off the page for me. I think that was a really good pick, especially for a younger build. So really like that there.
I'm with you.
What about you, man?
The shocker is, again, just a note. The oldest player on his team, old man Heimer Candelario at 28.4. Ancient, scary, so old. My favorite thing that he did, though, was he's gotten exceptional value on a specific brand of prospect, a specific genre, and that's international free agents. In the 15th and 17th round, he took Christian Hernandez and Pedro Leon at just exceptional values there. These are very young guys that are going to that have the potential to be great contributors in the majors. I just think that it's really good value, and especially like you said, we've established that he's building this young team, and I think that that's a great way to go about it. Just finding these values still. Let's see. Mr. Akeem Glaspy is next, and I don't really know much about Mr. Akeem, but I know what I do like is his team. I like Akeem's team, the Akeem squad.
What'd you like about it?
I love Vinny P. Vinny P in the 17th round, Vinny Pascantino. I saw a lot of excess value there that I'm really into. I think that it's a really a bold pick, and I like that. I think the chances of him sticking in the field are greater than Nick Prado's, even though I think I prefer Prado as a prospect just by hairs. I do love the pick. 24.5, he's going to start contributing very soon, and as a lot of the KC prospects are. And
yeah.
Least favorite for me, before I'll let you do the same here, is the I can't criticize it because I just complimented I forget who it was that I just complimented for this, but closers in the first 10 rounds, Kenley Jansen and Ryan Presley, that's just concerning. But again, I love both of those guys. I have tons of shares of both of those guys. Maybe it's just me. I hope that this bites me in the butt so that all of you can laugh at me. Let's just go with that. So, what about you, man? What did you think about Akeem's team?
Yeah, I liked it. I think similar to you, I love the Vinny P pick there. I think that was a great grab. I also like the Luis Castillo pick. I think that he's just been sliding a lot in drafts this year, I've noticed. And I know there's, kind of not – he's kind of stuck between like the ace level and the like SP2 level. I feel like people always are like, oh, this is his year. He's going to like break out. But I mean, everyone's seen the upside, and the upside's been there for years. So I really like, getting him at that point. And it wasn't his number one pitcher either. He already had Julio Urias as his SP1. So it's great having Castillo as your second pitcher there. The only pick that I was a little bit questionable on, and it's kind of funny as a Braves fan, but the Michael Harris pick I thought was pretty interesting. I think I'm generally a little bit lower on Harris than some other people are. I think that he's really grown on me a lot in the past year, but I'm just a little bit slower to come fully around on him. So the spot that he went was a little bit interesting in that 10th round for me, where there's still a lot of other prospects on the board. So, but he's one of those that I think you kind of see a lot of variance right now in the prospect world, where I've seen some rankings where people just absolutely love him, and I've seen others where, he's not even in the top 100. So I think that obviously we can see here that Akeem's one of the guys that loves the guy. So that's pretty cool. And, obviously as a Braves fan, I hope that he's right and that Harris is a stud.
Yeah, I think that I think that's there's a good shot of that. I like what I see from Harris, but again, there's just some concerns that I have that would keep him from being quite at that level of interest for me in a dynasty, but still, I do like the pick. Let's move on to the next team is going to be Mr. Kevin Hasting. And Kevin, my favorite pick for Kevin is Jose Ramirez, 13th overall. I love that. As he kept sliding, I kept thinking I was like, God, let Jose Ramirez fall to me, please. And alas, Kevin slaps down from the 13th pick. No, sir, Mr. Wheeler. Not today.
I have zero idea how Jose Ramirez falls to 13. In our draft, I had the 8th pick, and I was praying to get Ramirez at 8. And of course he's gone. I think he went 5th. And I was like, okay, well, obviously Highlander guys know nothing.
Exactly. Come holler at the SB Discord Dynasty, boys.
No, I love that pick. That was same thing for me. I think it's funny, making your first round pick be the pick that jumps out off the board. But there was no other pick for me that I even considered. That's just such a good value, especially again third base, just so bad.
Oh yeah, for sure. My least favorite though, I'm going to go another third baseman in the third round, Alberto Mondasi. That's a lot of risk for that profile and for that spot in the draft. He's still so young. I'm curious what his place is going to be in that lineup long term, but it'll all work out. Talent plays, and he clearly has talent, as inconsistent as it may be. What about you? What was your least favorite?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I might need to change my favorite team because I'm just hating on these Braves players. But I don't know. Huascar Noah was kind of an interesting pick to me. I mean, I've seen Noah a lot in person, and he's just nothing about him is like overly inspiring to where I'm like, oh yeah, like I absolutely want this guy on my fantasy roster. I think he's a fine pitcher. I think he's, a guy that in the Braves situation can give them kind of a back into the rotation piece, but I just don't really see much upside with the guy personally. So that was kind of an interesting one. But again, if he's young and he gives you innings, there's something to be said for that. So
There is, and especially in the Dynasty League. In my home Dynasty League, I actually roster Huascar Noah, and I think there's a little more upside than what you may be alluding to, but I definitely do see some warts there. All that being said, he's still very young and had a nice stretch of games last year before he ran into that unfortunate wall. It's crazy when you're going, just fist bumping everybody, and the wall is the next one. It's crazy. So crazy things happen. Mr. Chris Vargas is next, the second of 3 Chris's in the Highlander League. And real quick, and guys at the back half of the draft, I'm so sorry we're having to rush through this. My favorite pick, it's a pair. The pair of aces at the top, Zach Wheeler, Lance Lynn, maybe my 2 favorite pitchers to have in any set of leagues. I love Lance Lynn. He's definitely my favorite modern pitcher. He's the model of consistency. He's a big, bulky boy. I love everything about him. Praise.
What you got against Scherzer?
It's probably his new uniform, most of all.
No, I think you hit it on the head, though. It's crazy that Zach Wheeler and Lance Lynn are your second and third starters.
Yeah.
Because he took Scherzer before those guys. So, you hit it on the head. I think that those are great picks. I also love the Real Muto pick. I think that a lot of the catchers kind of were already – all that top-end catching went. The whole 5th round went. No one took Real Muto. And then he's like, all right, well, I guess I'll end this, and I'll just take him. So I thought that was a great pick. Just, he kind of fell there. I'm not a big catcher guy. I've said it before. But at that point, it's like, okay, I don't really have much choice. I just got to take the guy. So I think that was a good pick there.
I'm with you, man. My least favorite for Mr. Vargas's team, it's guys I love. Again, I'm going to do a pair and just cut it short. Justin Turner and Brandon Crawford, target these guys in all of my leagues, but I actually think they were reaches if I could be a little critical of Chris. And I'm not trying to be critical because I think that you might could have found upside and then gotten these guys a little later just because of their age. Granted, these are guys that eventually I might have had to pull the trigger on. So maybe he knows something I don't. Maybe this whole exercise is just proof that I'm an idiot. I'm going to chalk that as a definite learning. That's what I've learned most of all.
Oh, man.
What about your least favorite thing on Mr. Vargas's team?
Yeah, this is a lot better for me. I can hate on one of your guys. So I'm going to say Rhys Hoskins here. I thought that it's not that I don't like Hoskins. I just think that the positional need wasn't really there to get Hoskins when he did. So that was kind of my only thought there is he was clearly going for a win now build. He already had Matt Olson, so he's locked up, long term with first base for the future. So I think, you're really gonna hate this, but I thought it would have been a great spot to grab a relief pitcher there. Going win now.
I'm kidding.
So that was my only thought there. But again, I really like this team. This is another team where you can see right when you pull up his roster that he was trying to go all in this year. I'm curious, what was his average age? Did you do that for every team?
I did. Chris's average age, 31.5. Let me see if I can find where that falls on the list. Why don't you jump into the next team, man, and I'll get that information real quick.
Absolutely. So, the third Chris is our next team, Mr. Baseball Pods. He actually put together kind of another team I liked, and kind of, again, going a little bit win now with a mixture of some really young prospects. So I thought he had an interesting build where he didn't really commit one way or the other, but he has a lot of pieces where he can compete pretty soon. And he has a lot of really young guys that are going to be a little ways away that he can be banking on kind of coming up the pipeline later on. My favorite pick there, I really like the Corbin Carroll pick. Again, Corbin Carroll's one of my guys. Similar to Luciano, I've kind of been out in front of this guy, I feel like, amongst the prospect industry, just tooting this guy's horn for years now. And I honestly think that he's CJ Abrams with more power, which is funny because Abrams goes earlier than him in almost every league that I see. But I just absolutely love Corbin Carroll. And I think that, hopefully, fingers crossed, that injury he had last year isn't going to have any kind of long-term effect. And he's going to come back and just look like the dynamo that he did before he got injured last year. So I love that pick there. I thought that was a great pick.
You said it. You said everything I'd planned to say. That's my pick as well. Real quick, give me your least favorite, the shocker pick.
Yeah, it wasn't even a least favorite. I think the Carlos Hernandez was kind of an interesting pick there. Just not really a big Hernandez guy. I think he had a couple starts down the stretch last year that were semi-interesting, but have no idea what he's really going to look like in terms of piecing into that rotation. They have a ton of younger arms, and, at any point he could go through a prolonged struggle and then be stuck in like a long relief role or something. He gives me like Josh Tomlin vibes, which is kind of funny.
Gosh. Wow. Okay. Man, all the Josh Tomlin stands out there are quaking right now. So mine was actually Hernandez as well. And I think I'm a little more into Hernandez than you are. I think there are some qualities there to like, but I definitely can tell you that it's a hot seat for him based on the pitchers kind of lower than him on the pecking order. But I think it was just maybe an early pick. I think there could have been better value taken there for the Baseball Pods, man. Speaking of which, Baseball Pods, we'd love some love. Hit us up for the next tournament. We're going to at least lose in the first round of that, boy. So catch us.
That's right.
Catch us
there.
Be
in there, though, hopefully.
I mean, we could cross our fingers. Let's go for that. Real quick, Eric Cross, my most favoritist analyst. That's our new favorite joke. So what's your favorite pick of Eric's? What's your shocker pick of Eric's?
Yeah, Eric's was another team, like I mentioned, that I just absolutely loved. So there was a lot of picks I really liked here. Kind of even the build out the gates was really fun. I think that there's a lot of upside with power speed combo guys. So that's a ton of fun right out of the gates. But I really love the Jordan Lawler pick. I think if you look at the first year guys and where they were going, and then you look at where Jordan Lawler fell to, I was like, wow, that's a great grab right there. So that was kind of it took the cake, even though there was a lot of other picks that I really enjoyed there.
Without a doubt, you hit mine as well. Just along the same lines, not quite as strong and value driven as the Lawler pick. I'll say Jack Leiter had a lot of the same kind of qualities in terms of value because he wasn't taken, I guess, where the hype may have dictated he was. I think Eric pounced in a really great way there. I do not have a shocking or least favorite pick. I think, if anything, the shock was that Eric pulled the trigger on Witt in round 1, and that probably is just based in my biases regarding Witt. I acknowledge that it was a wonderful pick for this format and for this
Yeah.
league, though. So,
Yeah, my only pick and it's not really a bad pick or a surprising pick, but more so in Dynasty, I don't really know if Dalton Varsho is going to be catcher eligible for a long time. And so I think when he loses that catcher eligibility, his value is going to take a pretty significant hit there. So that was the only thing. But in terms of while he's catcher eligible, it was a fine pick. So it's like a half surprising pick.
I
But
like
yeah,
it.
really good build overall. I love this team. I think Eric did a really good job, and obviously you guys are still drafting. But so
Sure.
far, a lot to like.
Oh, yeah. Moving on to the guy picking 17th is Mr. Smada. What's up, Smada? Hope you're listening, watching, something, enjoying your life all together. My favorite pick of his, I'm going to go with Adam Wainwright. Give it to the 41-year-old baby, picked in the 17th round. That's value. This guy's going to return value at the 17th, even if it's just for one season. Who cares, man? Spotted knows the prospects. He's got it on lock. He'll be just fine. I ain't worried about it. Take Adam Wainwright, big dog.
Yeah, man. I think that if you look through all the teams, this was the one team where I was like, holy cow, like, even it's not even that they like are old, but a lot of these names have just been around so long.
Yes.
But it's like, oh my gosh, this team's so old. So it's just super funny. Like, even, Brandon Woodruff, who's not by any means an old pitcher, but he's just been good for so long that you're like, oh, that's kind of an old pitcher, but he's not, So it's pretty funny. I think that he had a really good draft in terms of win now. And I really loved a lot of those starting pitchers, Wainwright, Kershaw. My favorite was Eovaldi. I think that Josh St. Marie will be really happy to hear this if he's listening. But he's a big Eovaldi guy, and he's kind of hyped him up enough to where I've come around on him. And I think that Eovaldi can return some good value, especially for win now teams. And obviously, Smada's in that mode right now, so I really like that pick there.
For sure. I'm with you. Shout out to my boy JSM. I do have some Eovaldi shares as well, thanks to my guy's writing and to his hyping of him in the Discord. Let's skip my team. Just blaze on past it. Let's cover these other guys. Give them the time. Michael Waterloo, my least favorite thing about his team, I'll go ahead and start. He's stolen so many guys that I wanted. And I'm just going to – this is going to be the airing of grievances on my part. Let's go ahead. Start at the top. Jaron Duran, Nick Lodolo, Kyle Schwarber, George Kirby, Julio Rodriguez, Grayson Rodriguez. I have nothing but contempt and tears for you, Mr. Waterloo. So there you are.
Yeah, I was looking at this team. I was like, man, Drew got sniped so many times. Because you would be messaging me like, yeah, I'm kind of thinking about this guy, or yeah, I'm got my eye on this player. And next thing you know, Waterloo comes in, just like takes him out. I'm like, all right, well, we'll pivot, see who Drew's gonna go for now. So that was really funny. But I really again, I like this team too. I think that going back to third base, I think positional value. I love the Ke'Bryan Hayes pick. I think that kind of around that spot, and I know you guys kind of touched on this a little bit on the tool shed the other day, but I guarantee you that you and Eric weren't the only two guys kind of hoping Ke'Bryan made it back around. I bet there was a bunch of guys coming back on that turn. And right when Ke'Bryan went, he's like, oh, well, we don't really have any options with third base. And so you saw third base not get picked for a while. So I think that there was a lot to be said for that. That was a really good pick there.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think you're absolutely right. Hayes is a name that had to be circled on tons of lists. Just kind of around our, from the Eric Cross and back section, those last five, I think we were all probably really targeting Ke'Bryan Hayes there. And finally, picking last, Mr. Jeff Ponce. And Jeff, I really dig his team. My least favorite thing I'll say again is that he has this really funny thing where after I pick 18th, he'll pick 20th, and he'll pick a guy that, I obviously like in most cases, but I'm not targeting. However, it's the first pick of the next round where he decides to start this swiping game that I just don't care for. Jose Altuve, my favorite batter of the modern era. Corbin Burns, I thought maybe we'll start with pocket aces in this thing. No, Yu Darvish. Some may say I have a like for players from Japan. Don't know why they'd think that. I've given them no reason to do it. But yeah, Gavin Lux. All of these taken as I plan to take them 2 picks later. So, Jeff, if you're watching, bad. But good. What about you, buddy?
Yeah. Quick shout out to Jeff. I think he's done some really great work. He was with Prospect Live right when I jumped in with them originally. And that was kind of right when I was transitioning out of the baseball industry and into the fantasy industry. And Jeff was one of the first guys to kind of welcome me in and open his arms. So I've been really grateful for him. And at that point, he was Ralph Lishitz. So pretty funny that he's gone back to his, real roots, and awesome stuff over at BA now. And I think that, he's just really, really knowledgeable guy when it comes to prospects, and well-deserved getting that job over at BA. So super awesome to see him get that. But yeah, looking at his team, there was a lot of guys that I liked again. I think that the one guy that jumped off the page to me, another kind of post-hype sleeper prospect in Gavin Lux. And you kind of mentioned, I had a feeling kind of similarly, a lot of people probably had that name circled as well coming back. And, he just grabbed him right then and there. And I think that, where he slid into the 10th round, this time last year, there's no way he would have been making it to that point. So that was really great value there.
Definitely. You said a mouthful, man, and I think you said it best. I was hoping to get him. Jeff didn't let it happen. So Jeff is doing a good job by that standard. So that wraps us up. I know that we did not talk about one manager's team. He can get with my people. I'll get with his people. We'll figure it out at a later date, because we're going on very long, about 20% longer than I intended for us to be talking. But I did have one more question for you. You brought it up kind of as we were talking about teams, and I'm curious. You referenced that you had the 8th pick in the SP Streamer Elite Discord Dynasty.
I did.
Who'd you pick, buddy?
Yeah, so if you look at the way that this league's built, it's actually a head-to-head points league. So it's very, very heavy swayed towards pitching. So I actually, similar to you, went with my boy Garrett Cole. So, yep. Pretty crazy. I know, obviously, a couple about 50% picks earlier than you took him, but very different build. The point scheme, he was about 100 points above any other player. And so I had J-Ram circled. I wanted him bad.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling he might not would make it. But after J-Ram, I was like, I have to take Cole. And it was kind of funny because I'm actually obviously kind of the prospect guy in our SPS Discord. And I ended up going Garrett Cole and Mike Trout with my first 2 picks. And I was like, hey,
dude.
I was pretty stoked about it. I was like, okay, I know I'm not really grabbing prospects like my name says, but I don't really have any choice but to take these 2 guys. Like, you're talking about the best pitcher of the past 5 years, and obviously one of the best players of all time, So it was hard for me to pass that up. But yeah, I'm pretty shocked about it. I'm super excited though, to jump in and move forward in this draft, man. It's pretty sweet.
And you followed this with Bregman?
No, I actually took Aaron Nola in the middle. So again, I literally have my first 3 picks and I had no thoughts for any of them, where I was joking with the other guys in the draft. I was like, man, you guys aren't even letting me like put any thoughts towards my picks.
Yeah.
Because it was like guys were just falling. And I was like, okay, I didn't really want to take Garrett Cole, but I like felt like I had to.
Yeah.
And same thing with Trout. I was like, it was super funny. When I went into the draft, I was like, I'm going to kind of mess around, go really young. Of course, like my whole team's not young. It's like, okay, everyone else decided to go young. I'm just going to have to go win now. So it's pretty hilarious how it shook out. But it, like I said, it just kind of fell in my lap to say, where I was like, okay, well, and then coming around the turn in the fourth, I was like, okay, I really, really want Bregman, like I was talking about. And just kind of fell right to me. Again, I had Bregman and Semien circled there, and I was kind of going between the two. And I was like, I got to take Bregman just because of the positional difference there. So, and I'm a Bregman fan, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm really happy with my build so far. No prospects, so that's kind of a rip, but we'll sneak some in late under the cuff. I'm gonna pull an Eddie on this league, and I won't have any prospects. My team's gonna be super old. Next thing you know, I'm just gonna rattle off guys no one's heard of.
Yeah. Hey, for sure. So I know that you're picking your fifth round will be. Does you guys room go to sleep at a certain point, or are you how many picks away?
I actually don't know. I had to jump off the draft room when I got on here. Let me pull it up. I honestly could be on the clock. And who knows?
fun thing. Discord member Mr. Hexzilla says Simeon is still waiting on you, Peyton. So you could do some crazy stuff right here.
I figured he was long gone, so I just gave someone a pick. If they're watching this,
actually, nobody pick him. Nobody pick him because
I don't know if I'm on the clock or
nicely.
not. Let me pull it up.
Yeah, pull it up. We'll
I'm not on the clock, so okay, yeah, Simeon's long gone.
All right. Well, hopefully.
But
not.
yeah,
Hopefully.
I think Simeon was gonna go with me if I took Bregman.
Right.
But there's so many pitching. I mean, I'll have to show you this league sometime, man.
We'll look at it.
The pitching is nuts. Like, there was pitching flying off the board, and I was like, what is happening right now? So
I love this.
But yeah,
so much.
Anyways, no one takes Simeon.
Yeah, no one takes Simeon. We have established law. You don't want me to start sharing Creed quotes in that Discord because I will do it. Oh, I'll do it. And I don't have any concern to do it. So you watch it. So,
hey man, this was a fun episode. I enjoyed it.
I had a blast.
Before we jump off, I do want to ask you, you're obviously in a win now mode. Do you have any plans of taking relievers?
Yes. Without giving away any strategy, because I've been just sitting here criticizing everybody else's team.
I was curious.
Clearly the guy with like that I deserve to be here the least. I was joking with Jesse actually whenever we were messaging about the league initially. I was like, I don't know how I made it here. So the fact that I'm criticizing these people's picks is just lunacy. It's just terrible. I feel like such a tool. But yes, I swear I'm going to take relievers, and I'm actually starting that process. I was really hyped to get Devin Williams as my RP1. I think that's a closer for sure. He has a pitch that is legitimately of another world. Hyped for it. So yeah, maybe in the future, a couple episodes from now, because I don't want to sit here and talk about myself over and over. I'm not that selfish. So we will we'll have some other things coming up. But anyhow, beyond all that, Peyton, why don't you tell everybody listening where they can find you in between episodes of the next pick?
Yeah, I actually just changed my Twitter handle. So as you guys can see, I am no longer Peyton Skinner 12. And I am now Prospect Peyton. Wanted kind of something that rolled off the tongue a little bit, and also something that was semi-relevant, and thought that this was a great, mix of the two. Obviously super excited to keep hammering out prospect info on Twitter and in the Discord. Just overall really pumped up to keep this momentum going. And, like you said, Drew, this Dynasty content on the SPS is kind of a new thing, but I'm super excited to, have the two of us and so many other great Dynasty writers as well that are, a part of that community putting out some good work throughout the season. So super fun.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. So yeah, check out Peyton's work on spstreamer.com. He's, like he said, at Prospect Peyton. If you're wanting to follow me in my time between episodes, you may do so on Twitter at Drew is okay. You can follow my written work at spstreamer as well. We're getting geared up. The season's about to start. We're going to have the streaming pitcher of the day, all kinds of, I think we're going to start streaming hitter of the day. We've got some great stuff that Michael and the team have been working on. Obviously, like you just alluded to, the Prospect and Dynasty team is really firing on all cylinders, and we've got some great stuff coming up for you guys as well very, very soon. But until next time, we have made our pick. We can't wait to hear yours. Be sure to let us know what you think of this episode and show us some love on Twitter when you have time. Check out SP Streamer. Shout out and thank you to Fantrax, the Fantrax family, for hosting the podcast, for showing us all this love. We're so thankful to them, to Mike, to Lauren, to Doug. Thank you for all that you do for us and for setting the platform that me and Peyton can sit here and talk prospects and Dynasty for an hour and a half on a Wednesday for. Anyway, on behalf of Peyton, I am Drew. This has been our pick, and so with the next pick, you're on the clock. Who you got?